So let's take a look at the gear choice. I usually don't look at gear for any bosses because gear doesn't really matter. And also, there's so much good information out there about what gear is BIS and what you can use. Generally, the Wowhead guide is what I recommend. Really, really good, written by a friend of mine called Nerd Egghead. Great guides. But as far as I know, there isn't a guide out there for how to gear on Kologarn, and it is very different. So, here are the main two differences. First thing is the idol. Use an idol that buffs your mangles. Don't use the shred idol. You cannot shred on this boss, and yet I still see a ton of ferals just randomly having the shred idol equipped. Don't do that. You can also use the rip idol. If you're not comfortable with idols swapping, then I would just use the rip idol 100% of the fight. You are multi-ripping on this fight, so it's really, really, really good. I just like to swap them because I like to min-max just a little bit more, but it's very minor. So in this case, if you do want to idle swap mid-fight, which you should do on a shift into cat form, whether that's going into cat form from bear form, or whether it's going into cat form after the end of a flower shift, which is using Omen to proc, using Gift of the Wild to proc Omen, you're going to want to change idols then. I'm using the Burning Crusade one from Supremus. There's also a PvP one you get from arena points down in the sewers in Dalaran that's, I think, a little bit better than this. It doesn't really matter which one you use, they're all kind of the same, just get a Mango Idol. The other piece of gear that really makes a difference is the set bonus on some more Burning Crusade gear.
That TBC tier 6.
Yes, it is!
The Sunwell and Black Temple tier 6. This is the Thunderheart Raiment, or whatever it's called. The 2-set bonus here is really important. Reduces the cost of your Mangle ability in cat form by 5. Really, really good. We're also reducing the cost from the talents, as you'll see in a second. So reducing it this much, it all stacks, means that you just feel like you have infinite energy, which is incredible because you need it so badly on this fight. You need combo points to generate multiple rips, and you're not extending your rips with the shred glyph because you can't shred. So your rips are falling really fast, which means that you need combo points really fast. You just need to constantly build up to 5 raw, build up to 5 rip, change target, build up to 5 rip, change target again. You'll see this when we go over the vid. This set bonus helps enormously. If you have Sunwell tier gear, or if you can item restore it from the Blizzard website, do that. It's really good on this fight. Don't sim it. Even though the sim has a standing in front of the boss option, it doesn't have multiple targets option, so you won't get an accurate result. I'm going to prove that this works, not just because in my kill I'm wearing this, and I think I'm rank 10 or 11 right now, and it was super sloppy, as you'll see in the video, but this is actually the rank 1, a dude called Tarlan. Let's just zoom out to show it. Yeah, as the time of this video, he is rank 1, 8.5k, really, really sick. If we go into him, he is a gamer, I'll tell you that. He is using 2-piece Thunderheart, which is tier 6 for the Mangle cost reduction, 2-piece Dreamwalker, which increase your rip duration, which is incredibly valuable on this fight, since multiple rips and they're falling off all the time because you don't extend them from shred glyph. So 2-piece Dreamwalker, 2-piece Thunderheart, and he's also using 2-piece Night Song. So he's a 2-piece gamer, which is awesome. So watching this back, I can tell I'm not practiced at Kologarn. If you don't know, I didn't do any private server playing ever, so it's my first time learning these bosses, and I make a few little mistakes here, so we're going to cover those too, because I want to be honest about it.
The slow death, unforeseen, unforgiving.
I do these VOD reviews for myself to improve. So same typical standard opener, you do 1 combo point generating ability. I typically just do Rake to get a bleed on the target right away, so the rogues can use whatever their bleed buff themselves ability is if they want to. So 1 generate combo point ability, and then raw, and then I'm going to apply Mangle. At this point I should Mangle down to like 35-30 energy and then Tiger's Fury Berserk. But just the whole fight just throws me off so much at this point that instead of doing that, I just Mangle like a little bit and then Berserk without using Tiger's Fury. So this is a misplay. It's not major, because Mangle is so dirt cheap if you're running the talent build and the gear that I'm suggesting for this, that it doesn't end up really mattering. But that is inoptimal. I should have Mangled down and then used Tiger's Fury, because then it would be back on cooldown again, in 30 seconds. I would have probably got 1 extra use out of it over the fight. So at this point, we're just going to be mangling up to 5 instead of shredding, so obviously we can't shred. And then we're going to be applying Rip, really important. And then as soon as I've done that, I now move off this arm. I know my guild is going to kill it very quickly. I'm going to get to work on setting up bleeds on the other arm at this point. So I get up to 5 because I'm still using Berserk. Energy is not an issue at all. These mangles are dirt cheap, so I'm not worried about refreshing Savage Roar just yet. Instead, I get up to 5 and I put a rip on it as soon as I can. Now I need to refresh Savage Roar, so I'm going to switch back to Kolo because I want to start just building stuff on him anyway. I get up to, I think that was 3 before my Roar drops off. During the fight, you don't ever really want to be casting abilities without Roar, unless there's like a very good reason for it. So if it drops off and you have 3 points, you should just Roar right there at 3, instead of building all the way up to 5 and doing a Roar then. Like, it's the same logic as in your opener, you just want to have Roar up as soon as possible, whenever possible. It also speeds up you getting Rip, because now the next 2 combo point generating abilities, in this case Mangle, that I use, those points will go towards Rip, instead of going into a uselessly extended Roar. So Mangle's still going, get a couple Omen procs. You can see how dirt cheap all my abilities are. Like, I have so much energy, I don't even know what to do with it at this point. So I'm just going to build up to 5 and do a Savage Roar. I'm going to move back to the arm. Because combo points are worth so much from this fight, I found myself just flower shifting, which is using Gift of the Wild. It hits all 25 players, and it has an equal chance to proc Omen, which is your talent that makes your next cast free, on every single player. So it's like a 97% or something chance to proc if you cast Gift in a 25-man raid. So that's what flower shifting is. I also use it for swapping idols. When I know Rip is going to fall, as you can see, I use Gift of the Wild, go into caster form, and then on my going back into cat form macro, I actually have 2. One of them swaps me normally to my Shred idol, but the other one swaps me to my Rip idol. For this fight, and only this fight, I've changed that back into cat form macro to swap me to a Mangle idol instead of a Shred idol. So I swap in to cat with my Rip idol on, because I know Rip is falling on his arm. It's going to live long enough that it's definitely worth putting another Rip on it. This is a very messy kill, as I mentioned. I think our guild actually calls us to ignore this arm and burn boss. Damage done to an arm that doesn't die is not counted in the log. This is really important that you know this if you want to pass well, because if Kolo is low and an arm spawns, you might think like, hey, I better swap to it and get some bleeds going, get some Rip going. But if it's not going to die, it's all completely wasted. So at this point, yeah, I think I actually do swap back before I get Rip up, because the guild calls saying, hey, we're just going to burn Kolo down. So I know that putting a Rip on that arm would be completely pointless. This ends up hurting me a lot, because the guild later calls, actually, you know what, we are going to kill that arm. So that's a real shame. If I had just put that Rip on there before turning back, it would have been an enormous amount more damage. At this point, I'm on Kologarn, I've refreshed Rip. I'm just waiting for energy to regen, so what do we do when we're waiting for energy to regen? We bear weave. So I go into compare form, get a little bit of cheeky damage, I go back into cap before my energy caps, and I just start Mangle spamming again. I'm going to get it low, Tiger's Fury, back up to a nice Savage Roar. At this point, let me just go back just a second. Yeah, I think I do a 4-point Roar here. Yeah, this is because there is not long left on Rip. When you want to Roar doesn't actually depend on how long is left on Roar. Or rather, it's all about Rip and how long is left on Roar relative to your Rip timer. This big 3 here is part of my weak aura. It's something I edited on the MCAT pack just a little bit. I made it a bit bigger. This is how many extensions of 2 seconds I have left from my Rip, on my Rip from my Shred glyph. Of course, for this fight, I'm not running Shred glyph, because I can't shred him, so I'm not going to be getting these extensions. Usually when I see this, I would think, okay, there's 8 seconds left on Rip, and I have 3 2-second extensions as long as I cast Shred before the Rip falls off. That's what the glyph does. So 3 times 2 is 6, so that's 6 seconds plus 8, so I realistically have 14 seconds left on my Rip, which is about when you want to Roar. However, I know that I'm not going to be getting those, so I Roar like pretty much like as soon as I notice this, and then I realize, okay, it's coming up in 8 seconds. I need combo points badly, so I start flower shifting. So that little flower shift there, and then a lucky omen proc here, does mean that I get it up in time to refresh Rip right away. If you ever find yourself thinking like, crap, like my timers are messed up, my Rip's falling off soon, don't do a bear weave for that one little section while you wait for energy. Do a flower shift instead. Give yourself an omen, which is on average 1.5 combo points, because you're going to spend it on Shred, normally, in this case Mangle, and if it doesn't crit, you get 1, if it does crit, you get 2, and you have roughly 50% crit. Or whatever your gear gets. I don't know, maybe you're listening to this when it's Ice Crown Citadel, and you have 70% crit. So I'm going to Roar here. 10 seconds is not long left on Rip, so I'm probably going to do another little flower shift here. your rip will fall off really fast on Kologarn because you're not getting the shred glyph extensions. Most of us are very used to having that by now, and without it, it falls off so quick. Right arm respawns. I think the raid calls. Yeah, this is when they say, like, actually, you know what, we are going to kill the left arm. And I go, ah, shit, man, I really wish they hadn't made that call earlier on to ignore it. Definitely cost me probably 400 or 500 DPS, not ripping that arm, and then, like, keeping it up a little bit. Like, that little bear weave I did on Kologarn earlier, when I had rip up and my timers were good, that is a time when I would have swapped to the arm and refreshed rip. So all of that lost damage really adds up. At this point, a few people die. I think this is when they realize that we weren't quite going to get the boss down in time before he crushes people, and he just like killed 3 people. But it's fine. I know that this arm there's no chance that we kill this arm because boss is low. So I think I tap over to it briefly a few seconds ago, but I don't cast anything really on it. I'm like, no, there's no way. So I move back, and then this is when I get my my one bite of the fight that does crit. Pretty weak though. 12k is very meh, but you know, whatever. Just glad that it crit. And there you go. That is Kologarn. Rubble does not count in the logs, otherwise there would be a ton of padding. So if you find yourself like using Berserk to swipe on the rubble, don't do that. It doesn't count unless your raid asks you to help kill it, but they really shouldn't. So we're going to very briefly cover the talent build that I've been using for Kologarn. I'm not going to go through every single line again. The Wowhead guide does a great job of talking about feral talents in general. I'm just going to cover the specific ones that are useful or not useful on Kologarn. You might think that shredding attacks is not useful because obviously you can't shred, but it also reduces the rage cost of lacerate by a tiny little bit. And those points are kind of free because you have to spend points around here in order to get lower down the tree. So you can put 2 points here to reduce kind of your rage cost in bear weaves. You can put 2 points in here to very slightly buff your bite. You won't be biting very much on Kologarn because, like I said, combo points are so valuable because you can constantly apply rips, which are much better than bites, that you should really only get like the 1 bite at the end of the fight. Maybe a second one somewhere along the way. But this is not a very good talent, even at the best of times. Other than that, we won't need armor, like all the regular stuff. He can't parry, so just get this anyway for the dodge, the dodge reduction chance. But he can't parry, so don't worry about that. The really important ones are 2 out of 2, improve leader pack. I usually run 1 out of 2, but running 2 out of 2 not only doubles the AoE healing, but it doubles the mana gain that you get back. And we'll see in my clip in a second, there is a lot of casting Gift of the Wild to get Omen procs, so that you can rapidly build up those rips. So I found myself actually kind of close to running just running 1 out of 2, so I just swapped it to 2 out of 2. Also, we're going to be wanting 3 out of 3 improved mangle. This is the king talent in this Kologarn build. Reducing the energy cost by 6, stacks with the set bonus reduction by 5, so it's 11 less. It's already quite a cheap ability. So it's just going to make it really, really easy to get combo points and to get those rips up as quickly as possible. So there it is. That is my guide to passing on Kologarn. Good luck, my dudes. Don't do 4k damage anymore. Now you know. And I hope you still have some Sunwell tier.